Dr. Hans Sol pressed his face against the thick glass window of the submersible. The darkness outside was complete. At 11,000 meters below the surface of the Pacific Ocean, no sunlight had ever touched this place. Only the bright lights of their vessel cut through the black water like tiny stars in an endless night. "Sonar readings are strange today," said Taman from his seat at the control panel. The chief engineer frowned at his screen. Numbers and lines danced across the monitor in patterns he had never seen before. "There is something down there, something big." Hansol turned away from the window. As the team leader of the deep-sea research mission, he had spent 3 years preparing for this dive to the deepest point on Earth. The Mariana Trench held many secrets, but today felt different. Today the ocean seemed to be calling to them. "How big?" asked Dr. Yuna. The marine biologist sat at her own station, watching displays that showed the sea life around them. For the past hour, she had noticed something odd. Fish were swimming in perfect circles. Creatures that normally lived alone were gathering together in groups. Even the tiny organisms in the water were moving in strange patterns. Taman shook his head. "The sonar says it is over 2 kilometers long, but that cannot be right. Nothing natural is that big and that straight." "Straight?" Hansol moved to look at the sonar display. On the screen, he could see the outline of something massive resting on the ocean floor. It was not the curved shape of a rock formation or the random outline of a coral reef. This thing had clean lines and smooth edges. It looked like it had been built. "There," said Taman, pointing at the screen. "It has been there for hours, not moving, just sitting on the bottom like it belongs there." Dr. Boram looked up from her research notes. The xenobiologist studied life forms that were different from anything found on land. Down here in the deep ocean, she had discovered creatures that seemed impossible. But this was something new. "Could it be a whale?" she asked. "A very large whale that died and sank?" "No whale is that big," said Yuna. "And look at this." She pointed to her own screen, which showed the sea life in the area. Everything is moving toward it. Fish, squid, even the smallest creatures. They are all swimming in circles around whatever that thing is. Jiwoo, their communications specialist, was checking his equipment. "I am getting readings too," he said, "but not from our radio. Something else is sending out signals. Very weak signals, but they are there." Hansol felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold water outside. In all his years of ocean research, he had never seen anything like this. "Take us down," he ordered Taman. "Slowly. I want to see what we are dealing with." The submersible began to descend. Outside the windows, the pressure was so great that it could crush a human body in seconds. But their vessel was built to handle the crushing depths of the deepest ocean. As they went lower, their lights began to show something ahead. "There," whispered Dr. Su-jin, the team's linguist. She had been quiet during most of the dive, but now she stared out the front window with wide eyes. "Do you see that?" In the distance, barely visible in their lights, was the edge of something huge. It was not rock. It was not coral. The surface was smooth and dark, but it seemed to have a pattern to it. Lines ran along its length like the hull of a ship. But no ship had ever been built this large. "It is a vessel," said Hansol. His voice was quiet with wonder. "Some kind of craft." "But from where?" asked Boram. "And how long has it been down? Here?" Taman brought them closer. As they approached, their lights revealed more of the massive object. It was indeed shaped like a ship, but unlike any ship they had ever seen. The hull was covered in what looked like scales or plates. Each plate fit perfectly with the others, creating a surface that was both strong and flexible. "The readings are getting stronger," said Jiwoo. He was listening to his equipment through headphones. "Whatever is sending those signals, it is coming from inside that thing." Yuna was watching her biological scanners. "This is impossible," she said. "I am reading life signs. not from the creatures around it, but from the ship itself. It is like the whole thing is alive. As they moved along the length of the vessel, Hansol could see that it was partly buried in the mud of the ocean floor. How long had it been here? The sediment suggested it had been resting on the bottom for a very long time, possibly thousands of years. Maybe longer. "Look at the sea life," said Yuna. "They are not just swimming around it randomly. They are following specific paths, like they are being guided." She was right. The fish and other creatures were moving in precise patterns around the ship. Some swam in wide circles. Others moved in straight lines from one end of the vessel to the other. It was like they were following invisible roads in the water. "The electromagnetic readings are off the charts," reported Ji-woo. "But these are not normal radio waves. This is something else, something I have never seen before." Dr. Soo-jin was taking notes as fast as she could write. As a linguist, she studied how different creatures communicated. But this was beyond anything in her experience. "It is trying to talk to us," she said suddenly. "Whatever is in there, it knows we are here." As if responding to her words, the ship began to glow. A soft, gentle light started at one end of the massive vessel and traveled along its length like a slow wave. The light pulsed in a steady rhythm. It was not the harsh white light of their submersible. This was warm and golden, like sunlight, filtering through shallow water. "The pulse rate," said Dr. Dong-ho, their marine geologist. He had been measuring the rhythm of the light. "It matches a human heartbeat. Exactly." The team fell silent. Outside their small vessel, in the deepest, darkest part of the ocean, something ancient was waking up. The ship's glow grew brighter with each pulse, and the sea creatures around it began to move faster in their strange patterns. "We need to get back to the surface," said Tae-min. His voice was tight with concern. "We need to report this." But Hansol could not take his eyes off the glowing ship. Something about it called to him. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. "No," he said quietly. "Not yet. We stay and watch. We need to understand what this is." The ship pulsed again, brighter this time, and deep in the ocean, something that had been sleeping for millions of years began to dream of the surface world above. 3 days had passed since the team first discovered the massive vessel on the ocean floor. They had returned to their research station on the surface to report their findings, but no one believed them at first. The images and data they brought back seemed impossible. Now they were back in the deep, with better equipment and permission to establish a temporary base camp on the ocean floor. Dr. Hansol watched through the window as their robotic arms placed the last pieces of their underwater habitat next to the glowing ship. The vessel had not stopped pulsing since they found it. If anything, the light had grown stronger and more regular. The rhythm was exactly 72 beats per minute, just like a resting human heart. "Base camp is secure," announced Tae-min. "We can work down here for up to 2 weeks with the supplies we brought." Dr. Boram was already suiting up for an outside inspection. As their xenobiologist, she wanted to take samples of the ship's hull. "I need to touch it," she said. "The scanners show it is made of some kind of biological material, but I have to see it with my own eyes." "Be careful," warned Hansol. "We still do not know if it is dangerous." Boram nodded and entered the airlock. Within minutes, she was outside in the crushing depths, protected by her advanced diving suit. She approached the massive vessel with slow, careful movements. The ship's surface was unlike anything she had ever seen. Up close, it looked more like skin than metal. The plates she had noticed before were actually scales, each one the size of a dinner table. They overlapped perfectly, creating a hull that could flex and move with the ocean currents. "It is definitely alive," she reported through her radio. "The surface is warm. I can feel heat through my gloves, and there are what look like pores between the scales. It is breathing." Inside the base camp, the team watched her progress on their monitors. Dr. Yuna was recording everything on her biological scanners. "The creatures around us are getting more active," she said. "They are responding to Boram being close to the ship." She was right. Fish that had been swimming in lazy circles were now moving faster. Deeper sea creatures that normally hid in the mud were coming to the surface. All of them seemed drawn to the spot where Boram was taking her samples. Jiwoo was monitoring his communication equipment when something unexpected happened. "I am getting a signal," he said suddenly, "but not through radio. This is coming through the water itself." "What kind of signal?" asked Han-Sol. "I do not know. It is like electricity, but different, more complex." Jiwoo adjusted his equipment, trying to make sense of what he was hearing. "It is not random. There is a pattern to it." Dr. Sujin moved to help him. As their linguist, she was trained to recognize patterns in communication. "Play it through the speakers," she said. "Let me hear it." The sound that filled their base camp was unlike anything they had ever heard. It was not voices or music. It sounded like the ocean itself was trying to speak. There were low rumbles like distant wails, mixed with higher sounds like dolphin clicks. But underneath it all was something else, something that sounded almost like whispers. "The sea life is responding to it," observed Yuna. "Every time the signal gets stronger, the creatures around us move in new patterns." Outside, Boram had placed her collection tools against the ship's hull when something amazing happened. The scales around her sampling site began to part like opening flowers. Underneath was not the inside of a machine, but what looked like living tissue. It glowed with the same soft golden light that pulsed along the ship's hull. "It is letting me take samples," she reported. "The ship is cooperating." As soon as she touched the exposed tissue with her collection tool, the signals Jiwoo was receiving became much stronger. The whispers in the ocean sound became clearer. And then something incredible happened. Images began to appear in the water around their base camp. Not on screens or displays, but floating in the water itself, like three-dimensional movies. The images showed Earth, but not the Earth they knew. This Earth had different continents and different oceans. The sky was a different color. "What are we looking at?" whispered Dr. Dong-ho. Sujin was studying the images carefully. "I think it is showing us the past, a very distant past." The floating pictures changed, showing massive creatures walking across ancient lands. But these were not dinosaurs from Earth's history. These were something else entirely. Creatures that looked like they belonged in the ocean, but were walking on land with long, graceful limbs. "Those are not Earth creatures," said Boram through her radio. "I have never seen anything like them." The images shifted again, showing the same creatures building cities under the ocean. The cities were beautiful, made of living coral and growing plants instead of stone and metal. The creatures moved through the water like they were flying through air. Then the images showed space, stars and planets, and something traveling between them. A ship that looked exactly like the vessel they had found, but smaller. The ship was moving toward a blue and green planet that looked very much like Earth. "It is showing us where it came from," said Sujin. "This ship is from another world." The images continued, showing the ship arriving at Earth millions of years ago, but the Earth it showed was different from the one in their history books. Instead of the asteroid that killed the dinosaurs, the images showed the alien ship trying to stop the disaster. The ship was too late. "Look," said Yuna. "It tried to save the dinosaurs." The final images showed the ship diving into the ocean as the world above burned. It settled on the ocean floor and began to sleep. But even while sleeping, it was doing something. It was watching over the sea life, helping it grow and change. "It has been here the whole time," said Han-Sol quietly, "protecting the ocean, protecting life on Earth." The images faded, but the ship's pulsing grew stronger. The creature sounds from Jiwoo's equipment became more complex. And then, impossible as it seemed, they heard something that made them all freeze. A voice. Not human, but definitely intelligent. It spoke in sounds they did not recognize, but somehow they understood the meaning. "Welcome," the voice said through the water around them. "I have been waiting for you to find me. We have much to discuss." Bo-Ram floated next to the massive ship, her hand still touching its living hull. Around her, thousands of sea creatures had gathered in perfect formations, as if they were an army waiting for orders. The ship had been alone for 65 million years. Now finally, it could talk to the children of the world it had chosen to protect. The voice that came through the water was gentle, but filled with ancient sadness. Dr. Han Sol and his team listened as the ship began to tell them its story. The creature sounds from Jiwoo's equipment had become a language they could somehow understand. "My name is Qian Hua," the voice said. "I am the last of my kind to reach your world." More images appeared in the water around their base camp. These showed a beautiful ocean world with floating cities made of living coral. Creatures that looked like a mix between humans and sea animals moved gracefully through the water. They had long limbs, large eyes, and skin that changed colors, like a squid. "We called ourselves the Hai Sung," Qian Hua continued. "We were explorers of the deep places between stars. For thousands of years, we traveled from world to world, helping young life grow and survive." Dr. Bo-Ram was still outside, her hand pressed against the ship's warm hull. Through the contact, she could feel emotions that were not her own. Love for all living things, sadness for worlds that had died, hope for new life that might grow strong. "We came here because we saw what was going to happen to your world," the ship's voice said. "A great rock from space was coming. We tried to stop it, but we arrived too late." The images showed the massive asteroid that had killed the dinosaurs, but they also showed Qian Hua's desperate attempt to change its path. The ship had used all of its power, but the asteroid was too big and moving too fast. "When we could not stop the disaster, I made a choice," Qian Hua said. "I would stay and help the survivors. I would guide the new life that would grow from the ashes." Dr. Dong Ho was recording everything on his equipment. As their marine geologist, he understood better than anyone how life in the oceans had changed over millions of years. "You have been helping evolution," he said to the ship. "The sudden appearances of new species, the rapid development of intelligence in sea creatures. That was you." "Yes," Qian Hua replied. "I sleep for long periods to save energy, but I wake when life needs guidance. I helped your early ancestors learn to swim. I protected them from predators. I made sure they had food when the oceans changed." Dr. Ari, their microbiologist, was studying the samples Bo-Ram had collected. Under her microscope, she could see something amazing. The ship's tissue contained structures that looked like Earth bacteria, but more complex. Much more complex. "Your cells," she said to the ship. "They are like ours, but advanced. How is this possible?" "I have been adapting to your world for 65 million years," Qian Hua answered. "I took in your microorganisms and learned from them. I changed myself to better help your planet's life grow." The images in the water showed different time periods throughout Earth's history. The ship waking during mass extinctions to guide surviving creatures to safety. Qian Hua helping early mammals learn to fish in rivers. The ship encouraging the first intelligent sea creatures to explore beyond their home waters. "Every major step in your planet's development, I was there," the ship said. "Hidden, but helping. Your ancestors never knew, but I made sure they survived and grew strong." Dr. Sujin was fascinated by how the ship communicated. "How are we understanding you? Your language should be completely alien to us." "I speak through the ocean itself," Qian Hua explained. "Every creature that lives in the sea carries part of my message. Fish, whales, even the smallest organisms. They have been learning my language for millions of years. When you listen to the ocean, you hear my voice through theirs. It was true. Now that they knew what to listen for, they could hear it. The whale songs had patterns that matched the ship's communication. The clicks of dolphins contained the same rhythms. Even the movement of schools of fish followed the same mathematical patterns as Qianhua's speech. But something is wrong. The ship's voice became heavy with worry. I should have returned to sleep after checking on your world's progress, but I cannot. My body is failing after so many millions of years. The golden glow along the ship's hull began to flicker. The steady pulse that had matched a human heartbeat became irregular. Around their base camp, the sea creatures that had been swimming in perfect patterns began to scatter in confusion. I am dying, Qianhua said simply. And when I die, your world will lose its hidden protector. Dr. Hansol felt a chill of fear. Protected from what? The images in the water changed to show the darkness of space, but this darkness was different. It moved and flowed like it was alive. As they watched, the living darkness swept over planets, and when it passed, the worlds were left empty and cold. The Void Seekers, Qianhua whispered. The force that destroyed my home world and countless others. They consume the life energy of entire planets. They have been following the path of worlds that the High Sung tried to protect. The dark images showed world after world being drained of life. Beautiful ocean planets like Qianhua's home became dead rocks floating in space. Forest worlds were turned to dust. Even worlds with great cities and advanced technology could not stop the darkness. They are coming here, the ship continued. My sensors detected their scouts several years ago. They are still far away, but they are coming. Your world has perhaps 50 years before they arrive. Dr. Tae Min checked his instruments. Can we help you? Can we repair your ship? Your technology is not advanced enough, Qianhua replied, but there is another way. I can share my knowledge with your kind. I can teach you what the Hai Sung learned over thousands of years. But it requires a great sacrifice. What kind of sacrifice? Asked Hansol. One of you must join with me, the ship said. Become part of me as I become part of you. Together we might live long enough to prepare your world for what is coming. The team fell silent. Outside, Boram pressed, her hand harder against the ship's hull. She could feel Qianhua's loneliness, its desperate hope that after millions of years alone, it might finally have companions who could understand its burden. What would happen to whoever joins with you? Asked Dr. Yuna. They would become more than human, Qianhua answered. They would live as long as I do, see through my ancient eyes, and help guide your species toward survival. But they would also carry the weight of protecting an entire world. The ship's glow grew dimmer as they considered the choice. Somewhere, in the darkness of space, the Void Seekers continued their slow journey toward Earth, hungry for another world to consume. The weight of Qianhua's words settled over the team like the crushing pressure of the deep ocean. Dr. Hansol stared at the flickering lights along the massive ship's hull and tried to understand what they were being asked to do. Before anyone can join with me, the ship's voice said. I must know if your species is ready. The Haesung made mistakes in the past. We helped some worlds that were not prepared for our knowledge. Those worlds destroyed themselves. Dr. Boram was still connected to the ship through her touch on its hull. She could feel Qianhua's memories of worlds that had used advanced technology for war instead of protection. Beautiful planets turned into battlefields, species that had been guided to intelligence but chose destruction over growth. What kind of test? Asked Dr. Junho. The astrophysicist had been calculating the timeline of the approaching threat. 50 years seemed like a long time, but he knew it would pass quickly if they needed to prepare an entire world for invasion. I will present you and your people with challenges, Qianhua explained. Situations where you must choose between personal safety and the greater good, between immediate gain and long-term survival. I have been watching your species for thousands of years, but I need to see how you respond when the stakes are highest. As the ship spoke, the water around their base camp began to change. The images that had been showing the past now started displaying the present. They could see the surface of the ocean far above them, ships and cities and millions of people going about their daily lives, unaware of the conversation happening in the deepest places of the sea. The tests have already begun, the ship said. All over your world, I am creating situations that will show me who your people truly are. On the floating images, they saw natural disasters that were not quite natural. Storms that formed in perfect patterns. Earthquakes that created challenges rather than pure destruction. Floods that tested communities' ability to work together instead of simply causing damage. You are causing these disasters? Asked Dr. Young-Sik, their team leader, with shock in his voice. I am creating opportunities, Qianhua corrected. Each event gives your people a choice. They can respond with fear and selfishness, or with courage and cooperation. They can help each other, or they can help only themselves. Dr. Sujin was watching the images carefully. She could see rescue workers pulling strangers from rubble, communities sharing food and shelter with people they had never met. But she also saw looting and violence and people taking advantage of others' suffering. Some are failing the tests, she observed. Some always do, the ship replied sadly. No species is perfect, but I am looking for something specific. I need to know if enough of your people can put the survival of all life above their own immediate needs. The images shifted to show their own families and friends on the surface. Han Sol saw his wife working at the Marine Research Center, unaware that her husband was thousands of meters below having a conversation that could change the fate of the world. Yuna saw her children playing in their backyard, innocent of the darkness approaching from space. This is not fair, said Dr. Dong Ho. You are judging our entire species based on how we react to disasters you create. All tests are unfair, Qianhua replied. The Void Seekers will not be fair when they come. They will not give your people time to prepare or discuss options. They will simply consume everything. I need to know now if humanity can unite when facing extinction. More images appeared, showing the positive responses to the challenges. Scientists sharing research freely to help solve global problems. Nations that had been enemies working together to rescue disaster victims. Young people organizing to protect the environment even when it meant personal sacrifice. There is hope in your species, the ship said. I have seen humans choose to help others even when it costs them greatly. I have seen them protect creatures they do not understand and preserve, places they will never visit again. But I have also seen them destroy and consume and fight. Dr. Airy was studying the biological data flowing through the ship's communication. You said one of us must join with you. What exactly does that mean? Complete integration, Qianhua answered. Your consciousness would merge with mine. Your memories, thoughts, and feelings would become part of me, as my knowledge and experience would become part of you. Together, we would have the wisdom to guide both our species toward survival. And we would live as long as you do? Asked Jiwoo. Thousands of years, if we are successful in preparing for the Void Seekers. Long enough to see your civilization grow beyond anything you can currently imagine. But also long enough to watch everyone you know and love grow old and die while you remain. The team fell silent at that. The idea of immortality had always seemed appealing in stories and dreams. But the reality would mean watching countless generations of humans live and die while they remained to guide and protect. There is another part to the test, Qianhua continued. I am not just testing your species. I am testing each of you, personally. One of you will need to make the ultimate sacrifice, but that person must choose freely, with full understanding of what they are giving up and taking on. The ship's hull began to glow brighter in specific places. 7 areas of light appeared, one for each member of their team. As they watched, the lights began to pulse in different rhythms. Each of you has skills that would be valuable in our merger, the ship explained. Han Solo's leadership and understanding of ocean life, Bo-Ram's knowledge of biology and adaptation, Su-Jin's ability to communicate across different forms of consciousness. Any of you could succeed in joining with me. But which of us should do it? Asked Taemin. That is part of the test, Hua said. I will not choose. You must decide among yourselves who will make this sacrifice for your world. And you must do it knowing that whoever you choose will become something beyond human, carrying the burden of protecting all life on Earth. The images in the water showed them different possible futures. In some, Earth stood strong against the Void Seekers, protected by the combined wisdom of human and Hai-Sung knowledge. In others, the world fell to the darkness because the merger had failed or been rejected. How long do we have to decide? Asked Dr. Young-sik. The tests of your species will continue for several more days, Hua replied. But my body grows weaker. If we are to merge successfully, it must happen soon, perhaps within a week. As if to emphasize the urgency, the ship's glow flickered again. Some of the golden light along its hull went dark completely. Around them, several of the sea creatures that had been swimming in organized patterns began to swim away into the deeper darkness. I am sorry to put this burden on you, the ship said. For millions of years I have carried the responsibility alone. I had hoped to continue protecting your world until you were strong enough to protect yourselves. But time has run out. Now I need help from the very species I have been trying to save. Dr. Bo-Ram finally removed her hand from the ship's hull and turned to face her teammates through her helmet. Even through the diving gear, they could see the weight of decision on her face. We need to talk, she said simply. All of us. We need to decide who among us is willing to become something more than human to save the world. Above them, thousands of meters of dark water separated them from a surface world that had no idea its fate was being decided in the deepest places of the ocean. And beyond that, in the cold darkness of space, something hungry was slowly making its way toward a blue and green world that had been protected for far too long. The team gathered inside their underwater base camp for the most important discussion of their lives. Outside, Hua waited patiently while its glow continued to fade. Each hour that passed made the ancient ship weaker. We cannot ask someone else to make this choice, Dr. Han Solo said. It has to be one of us. Dr. Young-sik nodded grimly. The question is, who has the best chance of success? This is not about heroism. This is about saving every living thing on Earth. Dr. Bo-Ram sat quietly, still feeling the emotions she had shared with the ship. Hua has been alone for 65 million years. Whoever joins with it will understand loneliness in ways we cannot imagine, but they will also understand love for all life in ways humans never have. I volunteer, said Dr. Yuna suddenly. Everyone turned to look at the marine biologist. I have spent my entire career studying ocean life. I understand how all the pieces fit together. And I have no family who would be devastated by my choice. That is not true, said Dr. Su-Jin gently. You have children. They need their mother. Yuna looked down at her hands. They need a world to live in more than they need me. I should do it, said Dr. Junho. As an astrophysicist, I understand the threat from space better than anyone. I know what we are facing. Dr. A. shook her head. Understanding the threat is not enough. Whoever joins with Hua needs to understand life itself. That is my specialty. I have studied how organisms adapt and survive. The debate continued for hours. Each team member made arguments for why they should be chosen. Each also made arguments for why others would be better suited for the merger. They were scientists, trained to analyze problems logically. But this was not a problem that logic alone could solve. Finally, Dr. Hansol stood up. I am the team leader. This responsibility should be mine. Leadership experience will not matter once you merge with the ship, pointed out Dr. Taemin. You will be something entirely new. That is exactly why it should be me, Hansol replied. I have made difficult decisions before. I have had to think about the good of the whole team, not just myself, and I have no children who will lose a parent. The others fell silent. They all knew Hansol was right. As their leader, he had always put the mission and the team before his own needs. If anyone could handle the burden of protecting an entire world, it would be him. There is one more thing to consider, said Dr. Boram quietly. Qianhua is not just offering to share its knowledge with us. It needs to learn from us too. It has been alone so long that it has forgotten some things about what it means to live among others. She was right. Through her connection with the ship, she had felt its confusion about human emotions like friendship and love. Qianhua understood life and survival, but it had been isolated for so long that it had forgotten about joy and hope and the small moments that made life worth living. Then it is decided, said Hansol. I will join with Qianhua. Dr. Yuna reached out and took his hand. Are you sure? Once this is done, there will be no going back. You will live for thousands of years, but you will not be human anymore. Hansol smiled sadly. None of us will be completely human after today. We have learned things that will change us forever, but someone has to take the final step. They contacted Qianhua through the communication system. The ship's response came immediately, as if it had been waiting. You have chosen wisely, the ancient voice said. Hansol has the qualities needed for our merger. But I must warn you one final time. The process will change us both in ways we cannot predict. I understand, Hansol replied. What do I need to do? Come outside. Touch my hull as Boram did. But do not let go. The merger will begin as soon as we make contact. Hansol suited up in his diving gear while his teammates watched. Each of them knew they were about to lose their friend and leader forever. The person who returned from this merger would have Hansol's memories and personality, but would also carry the ancient wisdom and loneliness of a creature that had watched over Earth for millions of years. Tell my wife I love her, Hansol said to Dr. Sujin. Tell her this was the only way. Tell her yourself when you come back. Sujin replied, though they both knew that whoever came back would not be the same Hansol she had married. Hansol entered the airlock and swam out to where Qianhua waited. The ship's hull was dimmer than before, but still warm to the touch. As soon as he pressed his palm against the living surface, he felt the merger begin. It started as a tingling sensation, like electricity flowing through his hand. Then the feeling spread up his arm and throughout his body. But it was not painful. Instead, it felt like coming home after a long journey. Images flowed through his mind, not just Qianhua's memories, but its emotions. The joy of discovering new worlds full of life. The sadness of watching civilizations rise and fall. The desperate loneliness of being the last of its kind. But Hansol's memories were flowing into the ship as well. Qianhua experienced human love through Hansol's marriage. It felt the satisfaction of scientific discovery through his research. It learned about friendship and teamwork and the small daily joys that humans took for granted. Inside the base camp, the team watched through their cameras as Hansol's body began to glow with the same golden light as the ship. The glow spread from his diving suit into the water around him, creating patterns that matched the ship's hull. He is changing, whispered Dr. Yuna. They could see it happening. Hansol was becoming something new. Not human, but not alien either. A perfect combination of both species, carrying the best qualities of each. As the merger completed, the entire ship began to pulse with renewed energy. The sections that had gone dark lit up again. The creatures that had scattered in confusion returned, swimming in even more complex patterns than before. When Han Sol finally spoke, his voice came through the water itself, just as Kion Hua's had. But it was still recognizably him. "I am still myself," he said, and his teammates could hear the wonder in his voice. "But I am also more. I can feel every living thing in the ocean. I can sense the health of the entire planet, and I can see the path we need to take to survive what is coming." The ship's hull rippled like muscle under skin. What had been a dying vessel was now a living creature with the combined intelligence of human and Haesung wisdom. "The real work begins now," Han Sol said. "We have 50 years to prepare Earth for the Void Seekers, and I know exactly what we need to do." Around the ship, the ocean itself seemed to be waking up. Fish swam in formations that looked almost like writing. Whales sang in harmonies that carried messages across entire ocean basins. Even the smallest organisms began moving with purpose, as if they had all received the same set of instructions. The merger was complete. Earth now had a guardian who understood both the ancient wisdom needed to protect a world and the human heart needed to make that protection worthwhile. The real test of whether humanity could survive was about to begin. 6 months after the merger, the world had changed in ways that few people understood, but everyone could feel. Dr. Yuna stood on the deck of the research vessel and watched dolphins playing in patterns that looked almost like mathematical equations. The ocean had become more alive than ever before. "The fish populations are up 30% worldwide," reported Dr. Taemin from his monitoring station. "Ocean temperatures are stabilizing. Dead zones are coming back to life. It is like the entire sea is healing itself." It was true. Han Sol and Kion Hua, now merged into a single consciousness, were using their combined knowledge to repair damage that had taken decades to create. Coral reefs that had been dying were blooming with new growth. Species that had been nearly extinct were returning in healthy numbers. But the changes were not limited to the ocean. Around the world, people were reporting strange dreams, visions of swimming through space between the stars, feelings of connection to all life on Earth, a growing sense that something important was about to happen. Dr. Sujin had become the primary contact between the surface world and the merged consciousness. She carried messages between Han Sol and the governments and scientists who were trying to understand what was happening to their planet. "He wants to speak to all of us today," she announced to the remaining team members. "He says the next phase is ready to begin." They descended once again to the deep ocean floor, where their old base camp still functioned. But the area around it had been transformed. What had once been empty mud was now covered with structures that looked like living coral, but grew in patterns too complex for any natural reef. The ship itself had changed as well. It was no longer just lying on the ocean floor. Parts of it had grown upward, creating towers and spires that reached high into the water. Other parts had spread outward, connecting to similar structures that were growing all along the ocean floor. "Welcome back," Han Sol's voice greeted them. But now the voice came not just from the ship, but from the water itself, from the coral structures, from the thousands of sea creatures that swam around them in perfect formations. "Han Sol," said Dr. Yuna, "are you still you?" "I am still me," he replied, and they could hear the warmth that was purely human in his voice. "But I am also more. I am connected to every drop of water in every ocean. I can feel the pulse of life in creatures I never knew existed. And through them, I am preparing our world for what is coming." Images appeared in the water, showing them the progress that had been made around the world. In the deepest parts of every ocean, similar structures were growing. Networks of living coral and modified sea creatures that could communicate instantly. "Across any distance. I am creating a global nervous system," Han Sol explained. When the Void Seekers arrive, Earth will be able to respond as a single organism instead of billions of separate creatures. Dr. Boram was amazed by what she saw. You are connecting every living thing on the planet. Not just connecting, Han Sol said. Teaching. Every creature that touches the ocean is learning. Fish are becoming more intelligent. Whales are developing new forms of communication. Even the smallest organisms are gaining abilities they never had before. The images showed land animals coming to drink from rivers and lakes, then returning to their habitats with subtle changes in their behavior. Birds were flying in more complex patterns. Forests were growing in ways that made them more resistant to disease and climate change. Even humans were being affected, though most did not realize it yet. People think they are. Just having vivid dreams, said Dr. Jiwoo. They do not know you are teaching them. I cannot force knowledge on your species, Han Sol replied. But I can plant seeds of understanding. When the time comes, humans will find they know things they never learned and can do things they never thought possible. Dr. Ari was studying readings from her instruments. The genetic changes in sea life are incredible. You are accelerating evolution by millions of years. I am returning abilities that life on Earth once had and lost, Han Sol corrected. Long ago, all living things could communicate with each other. The barriers between species are artificial. I am simply removing them. As he spoke, they could see it happening around them. Fish were swimming alongside marine mammals in coordinated groups. Normally, predatory creatures were working together instead of hunting each other. The entire ocean had become a cooperative community. But the most important change is still to come, Han Sol said. The images in the water shifted to show the surface of the ocean. Ships and coastal cities were visible, along with millions of people going about their daily lives. I need humanity to understand what they are part of now, he continued. They need to know that they are no longer alone on this planet. Every living thing is connected, and together we can face any threat. Dr. Soo-jin had been quiet, but now she spoke up. The governments are asking questions. They want to know what is causing all these changes. They are starting to get scared. Then it is time to tell them the truth, Han Sol said. All of it. The Void Seekers, the merger, the global network we have been building. Humanity needs to understand what is coming and what we are doing to prepare for it. The images changed, again, showing space far beyond Earth's solar system. Dark shapes were moving between the stars, still distant, but getting closer. The Void Seekers had not changed course. They were still coming to consume Earth's life energy. How much time do we have left? Asked Dr. Dong-ho. 49 years and 7 months, Han Sol answered precisely. But we will be ready for them. Not just Earth, but other worlds as well. New images appeared showing other planets in distant solar systems. Some had oceans like Earth. Others had different forms of life entirely. But all of them were beginning to show the same kinds of changes that were happening in Earth's seas. I am not the only survivor of my kind, Han Sol said. Other high-sung ships reached other worlds. We are all waking up now, preparing for the final battle with the Void Seekers. When they arrive, they will not find helpless planets. They will find a network of worlds that can defend each other. Dr. Yuna felt tears in her eyes. The scope of what Han Sol and Kai Yun-hwa had become was beyond anything she had imagined. They were not just protecting Earth, but helping to create an alliance of living worlds across the galaxy. What do you need us to do? She asked. Return to the surface, Han Sol said. Tell your governments and your people what you have learned. Help them understand that the changes they are seeing are not something to fear, but something to celebrate. We are all becoming part of something larger than any single species or planet. As they prepared to leave the deep ocean, Han Sol spoke to them one final time as their friend and teammate. Thank you, he said, and his voice was purely human now, for trusting me with this choice, for helping me become what I needed to become. and for reminding me that no matter how far we evolve, the connections we make with each other are what make life worth protecting. The team began their journey back to the surface, carrying with them the knowledge that would change how humanity saw itself and its place in the universe. Behind them, Han Sol continued his work, spreading the network of life that would connect all living things on Earth. When the Void Seekers finally arrived, they would find something they had never encountered before. Not a world full of separate, competing species, but a single organism made up of billions of different forms of life, all working together with one purpose: to protect and preserve the miracle of living worlds in a universe that too often chose darkness over light. The age of isolation was ending. The age of connection was about to begin. And at the bottom of Earth's deepest ocean, a human consciousness merged with ancient alien wisdom continued the work of preparing not just one world, but an entire galaxy for the greatest test life had ever faced. Earth was no longer alone, and it would never be alone again.